You could buy a house in cash and retire if you owned your house outright in Milton or Oakville and decided to move to Brantford. Whether you're looking at moving from, say, an Oakville area, a Hamilton area, Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, Guelph, doesn't really matter. All those markets are a lot more expensive than what you're going to pay in Brantford. What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and in today's video we're going to be talking about a real estate market that I've been researching in depth for the last few years, because while I love London and Windsor, Ontario, there's a lot of other great markets to invest in, and one of the markets that I've been studying just relentlessly these last few years is Brantford, Ontario. So if you guys are interested in learning about Brantford, Ontario, buckle up, we're going to dive right into it. But first, let's start off with where Brantford's located in case you're not familiar with Brantford. Now, you can see I've got my Google Maps screen up here, and I've got the city of Brantford right in my sights. And the first thing we're going to notice is it's bisected by the 403 highway. So this is a major highway and a major factor in the growth of the city of Brantford. Beyond that, it actually is also on the Grand River. So way back in the day, that was a much bigger influence on the city's growth. These days, being on a small river like that, really not going to be a big impact when we're looking at the economics of a city. However, let's just jump in and discuss what Brantford's all about. So the city of Brantford is a community of 98,000 residents located in the heart of southern Ontario, situated along the picturesque Grand River, with direct access to Highway 403 in close proximity to several major highways, rail lines, and 3 major ports of entry. Brantford is a destination of choice for new residents, businesses, and visitors alike. With our diverse manufacturing sector and continually growing post-secondary presence, Brantford is transforming to meet the challenges of a new economy. Offering metropolitan amenities with a charming small-town feel, Brantford is a lively community with historic neighborhoods and a rich industrial legacy. So that was directly from the Brantford, Ontario website. And again, I just want to give a huge shout out. When I was doing my research, Brantford by far was my favorite city to research, just because the Economic Development Board and the city's website itself were both very easy to navigate. Little side note here, but I find a lot of Ontario cities, they're trying to get really flashy with their websites, which actually makes them almost completely unusable and impossible to find any real data. All you see is glossy photos and like little snippets, but where's the meat? Where's the real data that I can dive into? So again, Brantford, really appreciate the fact that your website doesn't suck. Unlike Kingston, Oshawa, Durham, all those cities, man, they were a pain in the ass to research compared to Brantford, Ontario. The next thing I want to discuss with you is just, I've got a few quick facts related to Brantford, Ontario from their Economic Development Board. If you're interested in checking it out, I encourage you to hit up advantagebrantford.ca. That's their economic development website. And so we've got their 2020 facts and stats sheet right in front of us. And I really love this just because it's so specific. So what we're looking at first is population just under 100,000. It's considered one of the top 10 best cities to buy real estate in Canada, according to Money Sense magazine, and that's the 6th year in a row. And so, you know, this is one of the few occasions where me and Money Sense are going to agree 100% on that fact. Beyond that, we can see, you know, it's perfectly located between Toronto, Buffalo, Detroit. Detroit being 2.5 hours away, Buffalo being 1.5 hours, and Toronto being under an hour. There's a local workforce of over 83,000 total, and nearly 1.1 million within a 50-kilometer range, and nearly 6 million within a 125-kilometer range. As well, it's got 4 local post-secondary schools, over 4,000 local students, and 17 universities within a 125-kilometer range. So all these are great, just little statistics, but then as we scroll down here, they've actually got a great breakdown of their largest industrial employers as well. So first we're going to see that Ferrero, the food manufacturer, by far is the largest employer with 900 staff. Then we got P&G with 400 in the warehouse and distribution. Treehouse Private Brands, again, another food manufacturer with 400. Another food manufacturer here with 385. Then we've got a pharmaceutical company, manufacturing, CS Johnson, a consumer products, 300. Tiger Cat, which is manufacturing. The Marco Corporation, which is warehouse distribution. And then Branton Store, which is manufacturing. So again, one thing that you're going to pick up in is that actually Brantford is really a large market for food processing and distribution as well. So we're going to come back to that in a second, but let's keep checking out the Advantage Brantford breakdown. So again, we can see some of the big investments going on in the city in 2020. Ferrero has committed to a $70 million investment. Holiday Inn has committed to a $23 million investment. Cochran Place is committed to 5.5. Playacor Shops, 3.2. Mitsu High Tech, 2.2. And Giza Packaging at 2.1. So again, this is just a nice little snapshot of some of the recent major investments going on in the city of Brantford and what that was going to do as a direct impact in regards to employment. Again, I just love how well put together this is. City of Brantford, top notch in my opinion when it comes to sharing their economic data. And now this is what gets really interesting to me here. So we can see the population projections from 2016 through to 2041. So looking at the population in values of 100,000, we've got 97,000 people right now as of 2016. Projected though by 2041 to reach 163,000. That's a massive population growth and something that's very enticing from a real estate investor's perspective. Beyond that, when we're looking at comparative average house prices, Brantford, again, let's jump over to the map first, but reminder, this is Brantford right here in the middle of our screen. To the right, we've got Hamilton, to the north, Cambridge, Guelph, Kitchener, and then further to the west, we've got Woodstock and London. But when we go back to this report on Brantford, we're going to see that Brantford's pricing is by far a lot lower than the regions around it. So Brantford at 506,000 for the average house price, whereas Cambridge to the north is 550, Kitchener-Waterloo is 580, Guelph is 588, Hamilton, Burlington is 655, and then the Greater Toronto area at 865. So again, this is a huge indicator and something I love to look at, because when I look at Ontario as, you know, the macro level, I kind of see Brantford as one of those little suburbs that no one's really paying attention to. And yet, when you look at all the areas around it, they're worth so much more than Brantford is. As well, Brantford, you know, well located on the 403 corridor, making it easy for commuting. Beyond that, when we look at its employment picture, I love the fact that it's diversified and it's not, you know, say, just a pure auto manufacturing, you know, industry-oriented city like, say, Oshawa. Instead, we've got a lot of food manufacturing. And so let's actually dive a little bit deeper into the employment picture in Brantford. Right, so jumping into the employment picture in Brantford, now I'm back at Advantage Brantford's website, and we're checking out the unemployment rates and how they were impacted during COVID-19. Again, I love looking at this because you never know when the second wave or another major pandemic might hit us. And I love to look at historical examples because it's the best indicator we've got for future examples. So when we're looking at the employment picture in 2020 for Brantford, Ontario, we can see that compared to both the province of Ontario as well as the country of Canada, Brantford actually was impacted less. It was impacted less than either of those markets. So again, here on our screen, we can see in red is Brantford, and we can see when both Ontario as well as Canada's employment rate spiked, and that was in May 2020. It was 13.6% in Ontario, and I believe it was 13.7% in Canada. However, when it peaked in Brantford, it was actually June 2020, and it was at 12.6%. So again, a full 1% lower than the province or the country of Canada. And again, that's just a great indicator. So we can assume that presumably either Brantford's employers are in higher demand or considered more essential services than, say, the province or the country in general. And that may have to do with a lot of the food manufacturing plants and distribution centers that go on in Brantford, and we'll come back to that again later in this video. But as we continue to check out just a little bit more in depth what's going on, we can look at this quick little market report in regards to the local labor market. And so again, I love how Brantford's on top of their stats here, and they're really flexing on the rest of Ontario based upon where they're at from a unemployment rate versus the rest of both the country and the province. So Brantford and area for September 2020, unemployment rate 8.1%. Canada overall is 9%, but when you look at the regions around Brantford, Hamilton 8.9, St. Catharines 8.7, Waterloo 12.2. 9.6 for Guelph, and London at 8.9. So again, Brantford's really well positioned. It's literally doing the best out of all the cities around it. It's also cheaper than almost all the cities except for those to the west of it around it. It also appears as if it's got a lot higher percentage of what would be considered essential services or essential employment compared to the rest of even Canada, which again was a 9% unemployment rate. So again, I just love all the stats and data that Brantford's willing to share. And part of the reason I suspect that they're willing to share all this information is because it looks...
My name is Alex Solga, and I joined the January boot camp in 2020, and I joined council that weekend.
My name's Allison Kazoo, and I've been in CashFlow Tribe since November when it started.
So I go by Mark Smith. I've been part of CashFlow Tribe since January of 2020.
So Dwayne Becker, I've been in CashFlow Tribe since March of 2020, so what, about 6 months?
It was a hard road before CashFlow Tribe, and I was in it alone. I didn't know any other investors until last summer, and I was miserable, I was broke, I hated my life. It would have been better to be in prison.
I was put in a box and I wasn't alive. I didn't feel, I always said that I didn't feel.
Thought I could do it on my own, a life full of scarcity, just bad environments. Tried to do it by myself because that's what I thought the nobility was. And yeah, I hit barriers and my mindset was completely shattered.
My entire adult life, I knew that what I was doing was not what I wanted, where I wanted to be. And CashFlow Tribe is a community of people that I've really been looking for a very long time.
I never had money. I was always maxed out on debt. I hated my life. It was horrible. And so realizing that there's other people that I can partner with, and that partnering isn't actually a bad thing, but it's a good thing. And that I can make more money partnering and not just giving away half my profits all the time. So just a different way to look at doing business was everything to me.
How real it was. There was no bullshit. There's other courses out there, there's other groups out there, and they're out there telling you what you want to hear. And the difference here was we actually had someone like Ben that was like allies that basically said, no, we're not going to give you the participation ribbon just for showing up. You got to earn your right to be here. And that's what it was. That's what exactly the type of accountability I was looking for.
So my big why is I want to live full out. Set a good example for my kids, because they're for a number of years I've been kind of a watered down version of myself, and I want to prove that life can be what you make it.
So since joining CashFlow Tribe, honestly, my life has completely changed. It has saved me. In terms of monetary, I got 2 checks this past week from our first properties that have closed since joining council for $145,000 that went into the bank. So phenomenal. My husband has left his job. He's happy.
This year, I'm doing 7 flips, and I've bought 4 properties, which is 2 triplexes and 2 fourplexes. Basically stress-free, using other people's resources, building relationships. It was just that different mindset on actually how to build a business. That was massive for me.
That this is by far and away the best investment that they could possibly make in their future.
So since joining CashFlow Tribe, I'm a completely different person. You know, I have a hard time looking at my old pictures actually, because that's a person I completely detested. That's not someone I want to do anything with now.
CashFlow has saved my life. You know, last year was the worst year of my life, then this year has been the best year. So I'm not going anywhere. And we're just doing more business now.
I have not gone back to teaching this September. It's just, there's so many pluses. This could be a very long video if I went through all of them.
So everything from my purpose, finding my purpose, looking for my purpose, so taking care of my mind. 3 is my relationships, really focusing on my relationships. I mean, I'm reading a book every 10 days right now.
Oh, that first big check was just incredible. My husband sat there staring at the check for the longest time, like literally 20 minutes to half an hour.
Tons of strategies, and definitely that is all part and parcel of CashFlow Tribe, but learn more life skills. Learn how to build habits.
It's a hard, lonely road on your own, which is why it's so helpful to be a part of something like this.
CashFlow Tribe is for everyone, first of all. But if no one's willing to hold themselves accountable, and they're expecting to fish and not being taught how to fish, this is not the right tribe from them, plain and simple. But if those that want to level up and take their ceiling and turn it into a floor, these are the people we want in CashFlow Tribe.
So again, I just love all the stats and data that Brantford's willing to share. And part of the reason I suspect that they're willing to share all this information is because it looks good on them. That's probably why they're putting in all this effort, where when I'm looking at websites like Kingston, and it's impossible to find any goddamn data on your website, well, I'm going to guess part of the reason is you're not really proud of the data, so you're not flexing on it, so you're not putting in the investment. So again, looking here at Brantford, we've just got a few more things breaking down what was exactly going on in regards to the monthly labor force and employment numbers, as well as the monthly participation employment rates and growth index, as well as the monthly Brantford adjusted unemployment rate. So we can see it both as a percentage and as a number here on the graph. And overall, again, I like what I'm seeing compared to the rest of Canada or Ontario when it comes to the Brantford employment market. So this is really encouraging to me. And we're going to throw a link to all the different studies, the different graphs, the different websites I mentioned in the video description down below. So I really encourage you guys, if you're thinking about investing in a market like Brantford, jump in, do your own due diligence. I always recommend putting together, say, a one-page summary just about the local city you're investing in, just so you've always got it as a point of reference. And every, 3, 6 months, 1 year, you can go back and update it just to gain even more perspective about what's going on in your local real estate market, both from an employment, population, post-secondary education. Those are all major factors that we're going to want to look at as real estate investors. One more part of the Advantage Brantford website that I really want to share with you guys was just looking at the local real estate market. So again, they've got the August 2020 average house prices here for us in hundreds of thousands. And again, just showing you that Brantford is positioned lower than Canada's average home price, as well as it's lower than all the other cities around it, other than the cities to the west of Brantford. So whether you're a city to like the north, whether you're to the east, whether you're directly to the east or even southeast, again, Brantford's well positioned from a price perspective, considering the fact that it also has the lowest unemployment rate. So again, we can see 567,000 was Brantford's, Canada's is 586,000. Again, once you get into the Oakville, Milton area, which really isn't that far of a drive from Brantford, again, Google it, but I've taken an Uber. You can Uber from Brantford to Oakville. And I did that once because Dylan McLaughlin's car broke down on the side of the highway and we had to get to the right club. So we took an Uber and it was under an hour Uber drive. And that was during peak traffic. But again, if you think about that, Brantford is literally less than half the cost of Oakville, Milton. So if I was thinking about moving into Oakville or Milton, and I could either buy 2 houses in Brantford or 1 house in Milton or Oakville, I think I would choose buying 2 houses in Brantford. Again, especially considering that its employment picture looks a lot rosier than a lot of its neighbors. Otherwise here, we've got a great graph breaking down Brantford's average house prices. So we can see, as of August, we're at 567. But if you see the general trend, it really started picking up around April and then moving forward. But it's been a pretty steady Eddy price increase, in my opinion, since 2017. So there hasn't been any sharp peaks or sharp valleys. It's been just consistently trending up. And again, I like to see that slow, just consistent growth when it comes to house prices. So again, reminder here, in December 16, it was at 306,000 for a house, whereas now we're looking at August 2020, 567,000. So that's a pretty massive increase overall, but again, it seems pretty steady other than a couple of those sharp peaks at the start of 2017. But since then, it's been pretty consistent. Then finally, the last piece on this website that I want to highlight for you guys is the monthly average house price index. And again, we've got Brantford here in red, and overall, very similar to London, Ontario, which we've got just above it. You can see how dramatically both of these cities have increased since April of 2020. Both of them have just been on an absolute tear. And now, there's a lot of different hypotheses that I could put forward to you guys as to why I think that's the case. But I think one of the biggest ones is going to be telecommuting. Again, reminder, if you're living in Milton or Oakville, you could sell your property, probably cash out and buy a house in cash in Brantford and still have enough money to retire off of. You could buy a house in cash and retire if you owned your house outright in Milton or Oakville and decided to move to Brantford. Beyond that, it's natural that we're going to continue to see more and more employers move towards allowing their employees to telecommute, either part-time or full-time. And as that occurs, I think we're going to see a lot of people choosing to move further and further outside of the major metro areas. And Brantford, again, is really well positioned. Whether you're looking at moving from, say, an Oakville area, a Hamilton area, Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, Guelph, doesn't really matter. All those markets are a lot more expensive than what you're going to pay in Brantford. Now, let's dive into the actual deep numbers behind the Brantford real estate market. So here I've got the Brantford Regional Real Estate Association's data for September. And so what we can see here right now is residential sales activity have just been going through the roof in 2020 compared to the 10-year average. So that's showing that demand is really outstripping the previous years compared to what we've seen. Then when we look at new listings, though, we can see that new listings actually are staying pretty consistent within that 10-year average. So again, as demand continues to increase and people buy more houses, but the new listings continue to stay relatively consistent as far as new listings coming on the market, we would expect to see that create pressure and increase the prices when it comes to Brantford real estate. And now when we look at residential active listings for September only in Brantford, I mean, this is everything. It hasn't been since 2016, and reminder, that big spike in 2017 was due to a lot of the pressure that we saw in 2016 and early 2017, both in Brantford as well as markets like London, Ontario. So it seems like we're coming towards a perfect recipe right now for Brantford to see a huge spike in 2021. But again, I don't have a perfectly working crystal ball. No one does. You always need to do your own due diligence, but you maybe want to start with some of the websites that I'm sharing. And again, reminder, link in the video description down below. But then if we move on towards what the months of inventory is, we can see that there's literally less than a month's worth of inventory in Brantford based upon the month of September sales. Now, is this going to continue to happen, or is this a COVID spike? I'm not sure. And again, no one can predict the future, but we can see clearly that last time in 2016, we were around 1.25, maybe 1.33 months of inventory. And then in 2017, we saw that huge spike in prices. Well, if I was looking at the Brantford market in 2020, it seems kind of similar, doesn't it? So again, maybe this is one of the reasons that I like Brantford, Ontario so much. And then finally, when we're looking at residential average prices in the Brantford region, we've got some great data here just breaking down for us where we are. It looks like they're a little bit behind here in where I thought they would be for their data. But again, we can see that it looks like in July, I believe that's August, where we saw the biggest spike in regards to pricing. But again, based upon both the supply and the demand we're seeing, I wouldn't be surprised to see this trend continue upwards. One last thing that I forgot to cover earlier is just the major industries when we're looking at Brantford, Ontario. So I've got a few stats up here again from the Advantage Brantford website, but just to give you guys a quick little synopsis, advanced manufacturing has about 2,100 workers spread across 22 companies. Food and beverage manufacturing has 2,300 workers, over 3,000 producers, and 230 commodities produced, along with 8.9 million acres of land within the region that's essentially serviced by Brantford. Then plastics and rubber with 1,100 workers spread across 26 companies. And then finally warehousing and distribution, 1,500 workers plus, or in over 40 companies, I should say. So again, when we look at that and consider the impact COVID had on our economy during the first wave, well, it kind of makes sense why Brantford would continue to see unemployment rates stay steadier than other markets that had big spikes. And that's because of the food and beverage manufacturing and processing plants, as well as warehouse and distribution. Those are two major industries that need to keep rolling no matter what, regardless of what's going on with COVID. So again, should there be a second wave, I think Brantford's uniquely positioned to benefit from that. And again, the geography behind Brantford, I think, makes for a really strong argument for why this market could dominate over not just the next few years, but all the way out to 2046. Because remember, we're looking at over the next 20 plus years, a 60% increase in the overall population, and over the next 10 years, a 12.8% increase. This is above the province's average, which again is a great indicator of the demand and the growth that Brantford's probably going to expect. All right, guys, so that's kind of my data and my opinions on the Brantford market as of 2020. I'd love to hear from you, though. Are you investing in Brantford? Have you been thinking about investing in Brantford? What markets, what properties are you looking at or actively investing in? What do you own in Brantford? And what are you seeing as a local landlord? Let me know in that comment section down below. Share it with your fellow audience members because I really appreciate it, and I know they love seeing the perspective of the boots on the ground investors, the local investors that are actually going in there and buying properties. Otherwise, if there's another city, another market you'd like to see me do a deep dive analysis on, let us know in the comment section. If you enjoyed this video, what I need you to do is smash that like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new to my channel, or if you're just one of the 60% plus assholes that have never subscribed to my channel, it'd be super cool because less than 50% of my viewers are actually subscribed to my channel. So again, it's literally free. I know a lot of you are very frugal, but I don't understand. It doesn't cost you anything. I mean, the data charge can't be that much from hitting the subscribe button. But otherwise, really appreciate you guys hanging out with me and learning more about the Brantford, Ontario real estate market. Let me know other markets you want me to cover, and let me know, are you going to be buying in Brantford?